Hey everyone, I'm just going to give you a quick refresher. What if I want to factor some trinomials and just in your standard form of ax squared plus bx plus c when a, that front number, equals 1? Well, just a reminder, factoring is undoing a multiplication. So, say for example, I had x squared, or let's see, x plus 2 times x plus 3. Well, in order to put that together, I would take x times x and get x squared. Then I would do x times 3, which would give me 3x. Then I would do 2 times x plus 2x. And then I would do the end too. So 2 times 3 is plus 6. Well, if I put those all together, that gives me x squared plus 5x plus 6. Well, factoring is undoing this piece and going back up to here. So it's just a circular process. I go in cycles from the factored version to the expanded version, back and forth, back and forth. So it's undoing a binomial times a binomial. That's not super nice, but a binomial times a binomial. And so really what I want to do is each time I'm going to pull this trinomial part, and my ultimate goal is to get back to this place. So each time I'm going to look at the front term and say, right, what is that? X squared. Well, what multiplied by itself gives me x squared? Or what times what gives me x squared? It's going to be x and x. And then over here, I look at the end number. Now I see that it's minus, and so I'm going to deal with that in a second. But right now, I'm just going to say, what are the factors of 15? I always start with 1. 1 times 15. Does 2 go in there? No. 3? Yes. 3 times 5. And, oh, that's it. Okay, now, because this is minus 15, I know that in order to multiply two things to get a negative, one of them has to be positive, one has to be negative. So, if that's the case, it's either going to be like a -1, positive 15, or positive 1, negative 15, or positive 3, negative 5, or negative 3, positive 5, but I'm just going to write down the numbers. Now, how do I pick which set it is? Well, that's when I look in the middle. And I see that they have to multiply to give me negative 15, but add to give me positive 2. So, what does that? I think it's going to be the 3 and the 5. Doesn't really matter what order I write them in at this point in time, because this is 1x and 1x. That makes it nice. All right, so I'm just going to check. 1x times 3 gives me 3x, and 1x times 5 gives me 5x. Now, if one of them's positive and one of them's negative, would they add? How would I get it to add to give me 2? I would say, hey, if I want positive 2, then it's got to be plus 5 minus 3. So I follow through. The 3 has to be minus, the 5 has to be positive. Now, one of the biggest mistakes I see then is that people try to use this piece in their solution, and I don't want that. So I'm just going to cross it out so it doesn't get in my way. So my solution, I'm going to take the first and the first. So x minus 3, if I want to do 1x minus 3, totally can. And then the second one, and so that's going to give me 1x plus 5. Now this one I put the 1, the other one I didn't. Is that okay? You bet it is. Now I'm going to check my work real quick. So how does this all go together? Well, if I put it back, x times x is x squared. Then x times 5, positive 5x. Then I'm going to do negative 3 times 1x is minus 3x. And then negative 3 times 5, negative 15. So I get x squared plus 2x minus 15. Is that where I started? Check. So what's my solution? My solution is right here. X minus 3 times x plus 5. Okay, let's try a couple of more. I see all sorts of stuff. Look at this one. I just want to make a couple of observations. This one is plus and plus. If that's the case, right away you know something. What do you know about the signs? Yep, it's going to be plus and plus. I personally don't like to write the signs until the end, but some of the other teachers, like Mrs. Ellingson, she writes the signs first. Either way is fine, whatever works for your brain. Let's go to the next one. This one is minus and plus. Okay, so that means they multiply to give you a positive, but add to give you a negative. Well, when I'm multiplying to get a positive, it's got to be either positive, positive, or what's my other option? Negative, negative. So in this case, this one I know it's going to be negative and negative. Let's go to the next one. This one I see positive and negative. So what's the pattern there? Well, in order to get a negative number, you have to do a negative but times a positive. So this one of them's going to be negative, one's going to be positive. These are the ones that I don't like to write down right away because I like to figure it out first, but it's just good to know that one will be positive, one will be negative. And then because they add to give me positive 3, which number goes behind the positive sign? Yeah, the bigger one, because the positives have to win. Now this next one, I see another pattern. I see minus, minus. Well, how do you get a negative number by multiplying? Yeah, it's got to be a negative times a positive. So if you wanted to, you could just put the negative positive out right away. That might help you. If I do that, let's see. But then they have to add to give me negative. So which number does the negative sign get then? The negative gets the bigger number because the negatives have to win. So now that we've gone through that, see if you can pull them apart, pause it, and try these couple, and then I will do them fast for when you come back. It's just going to pop up and be done, and see if you can figure out why it is the way I have it. All right, so this first one, I know that 3 times 5 gives me positive 15, 3 plus 5 gives me 8 in the middle. And so you can see my work. My solution is x plus 3 times x plus 5. If you haven't already done it, quick pause and do that next one. All right, in this one, I figured out all of the ways to get 20 are 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. Then I had to figure out, okay, which one of those adds to give me negative 9? Well, if it multiplies to give me positive, adds to give me negative, it's got to be negative, negative. So I had already kind of written that in, but then I decided 4 and 5, when I put those two together, they give me 9, or negative 4 plus negative 5 gives me 9. All right, keep going to the next one. So in this one, I decided, let's see, 18 is 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. They have to multiply to give me negative, so I decided that one had to be negative, one had to be positive. That said, I then decided that if one was negative, one was positive, and I wanted to get positive 3, then I would have to have this and that. So, x and x, the 3 had to be negative, the 6 had to be positive. Now, it's super important that you know I'm not using these in my parentheses. That was just the work. So the minus 3 goes here, the plus 6 goes here. Again, if it helps you to put the signs out right away, that's a super wise choice. It's not how I do it, but it's a great way to do it. Try the next one. I like this one. The only option for 7 is 1 and 7. Now you might be saying, hey, it's negative 7. Right. So if it multiplies to give me negative 7, one has to be negative and one has to be positive. And I want the negatives to win. So who's going to get the negative? The 7 and the 1's going to get the positive. There you go. So what is the pattern? The pattern is this. So which trinomial produces the correct binomial factors? if you have a plus and a plus, that means that you have a plus and a plus in the original. So if you have a plus and a plus in the original, you're going to get plus plus. If you have in the original a plus the n number, that means the signs have to be the same. But they add to give me negative, so if they multiply to be positive, add to be negative, they have to be negative, negative. Now, what happens if the c, or the end number, is negative? Well, that means you're going to get one of each sign. And you just have to decide who's going to win. The positives win the bigger number in this one, and the negatives win the bigger number in here. So again, if your constant number is a negative, then you're going to have one of each. And then you just decide who wins. And that's the bigger number. The sign that wins gets the bigger number.